John, can you think of anything for the why councillor?
We vote with your green. So Councillor Mayor Turley, Councillor Adams, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Aldgate, Councillor Braco, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page. It's a unanimous vote. Thank you, everybody. We'll now continue on. We now move to the mayoral minute, supplementary items. Oh, we still haven't done the disclosures of interest. So we have disclosures of interest. I'll just go around the room. Councillor Adams?
Yes, mine is non-pecuniary conflict of interest in item 3, notice of motion. I have close relatives to the manager of the waste management facility, and I will leave the meeting. And also pecuniary interest in item 4, reports, as the applicant is a sponsor of an organisation of which I'm a secretary.
Okay.
That is pecuniary. He's a general sponsor.
And what are your actions?
I will leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor LeCour?
Interest in item 6, report 5120. An acquaintance of someone, a relative is named in the report, and I'll be leaving the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Kennedy?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Non-pecuniary conflict of interest in item 3, confidential matters. I am on the committee of the local Broken Hill Soccer Association. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Is there any other pecuniary interest? Okay, thank you, everyone. Given that, we'll now move to the mayoral minute. Mayoral minute number 6/20. I move the mayoral minute. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillors, we will continue to lobby the government, regardless of what announcements have been made this week about our stimulus package. We know that for all the report that this council, like every other council, will find the next 12 months, not just the next 12 months, but we'll find the next couple of years very difficult to recover from this pandemic. I just want to acknowledge all the work that our staff has done, but there is a reality check that only government at this stage will be able to provide us with some kind of continuity. I do note that the government did announce this week a stimulus package, the New South Wales government, but it's unfortunate what we can see is that we won't really be able to access that package. My great concern is for our small businesses in Broken Hill, is for our infrastructure builds, but I think there's a great opportunity as well, is that what the federal and state government are looking at is really those infrastructure builds of significance. So, you know, I'm sure that our general manager is getting things ready, but works hand in hand with what we need on the ground. One of the areas that will really struggle, if you look at apprentices this year, our TAPE and our VET courses, you know, you wonder how TAPE is going to stay open, but for us, we need to increase our access to those courses. It is a time to lobby, and it's a time to lobby hard. Even if we do this at every council meeting until we get a response that we can use. I know the GM's reached out to his network across the board, and he's asked about what are the other GMs finding and their opportunities. And with this current stimulus package the government has announced, it is a good package, but because of our size, we probably won't see the benefits all up. But we do also want to say that the government is doing the best given the circumstances. I think part of this is that we also need to let Linda Scott, the President of Local Government New South Wales, know. It's a difficult time for one and all, but it's one that we will fight together. It is part that we have to be the best advocates we can be for our community. We can't step down, we have to go forward. We have to make sure that we look after not just our community, but our staff who are out there fighting hard. With that, I'll put the motion.
There's a
Yeah, I'm getting there. And I'll ask the speakers against. Councillor Kennedy, are you speaking against the motion?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
What concerns me about this mayoral minute is we're a month behind where we should be. Last council meeting at number 11 of the first mayoral minute, where I attempted to amend a bit, attempted for council write to the state and federal members and state and federal ministers requesting that council receive the same economic stimulus packages that are being offered to small and medium-sized businesses in Australia at that moment. What has happened because of our council delaying that action, now a month behind where we should have been, and now asking for virtually the same thing that was voted against at the last council meeting. We are now in the middle of the pack with 500 other councillors. Instead of being a council where we would have been well in front of the pack, having the year of both state and federal politicians, letting them know the circumstances that we were in right at that stage. We were talking at that stage of about a $1.5 million increase in deficit. That hasn't changed. It's probably gone down, but the reality was at the time it had been identified that council was going to have significant financial issues to do with the COVID-19 virus. Council, instead of taking action and moving forward and being in a position where we would have been speaking directly for politics or for whatever other reason, councillors decided to ignore that addendum minute last council meeting. So instead of us being in with a chance of securing jobs in Broken Hill for council employees and other people that work in business in Broken Hill, we are now with everyone else. And as we all know, you had to meet a certain amount of percentage downward turn in income or overall turnover to be eligible for those sort of things. This now means that we'll be chasing our tail. We all know that we're not going to get any further ahead. In this latest mayoral minute, it talks about a deficit greater than 2 million, with a preliminary estimate tracking at a further operating deficit would exceed 2 million for the year ending 30 June. I've asked time and time again, how do we get to in excess of that $2 million in greater deficit? I still haven't been told. I've asked and asked and asked. This is the second report that it's now been written into. Council, right up until the 24th of March, had ordinary operations. Waste services had not been reduced. We'd only just closed a number of council sites at that stage, yet we've been told in the report that it took into account 4 months when one of the 4 months was almost over. I still, as a councillor, have not been given the financial information that is required to make an informed decision. I'll ask again, and I hope this time it is answered. How has council determined that we will end up with a operating deficit of more that exceeds 2 million to the end of June? It's been stated that may have changed at this time, but I still do not know how council came up with that figure. For that reason, I cannot support this motion. I cannot support a motion that is 30 days behind. I cannot support a motion that has financial information in there that is not backed by any factual background. It is a statement that has no credible information tied to it. There is no numbers that identify how that amount of money had come to, where it's from, how it got to there, what we can do to fix it. I know it's been stated that we'll get this information in May. Well, you've got to remember these reports, these mayoral minutes were put in at the end of March and now at this April meeting. It's no good giving me information after council's already passed a couple of items. And for the information of councillors, I did not vote for the mayoral minute at the March meeting of last time. That was stated at a briefing. I voted against it. And I voted against it for the same reasons I'm speaking against the mayoral minute tonight. If that information is not provided to councillors, I cannot support a motion that does not have the sufficient information in it for me to make an informed decision. So I therefore speak against. Thank you.
Councillor. Your 5 minutes is up. Councillor Clark, you're speaking against. You're speaking for the motion, for the mayoral minute?
Yes.
Thank you, councillor. Just give a chance for you're being unmuted.
I'm sorry?
You've just been unmuted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I thought you said omitted. Okay. Look, of course, I'm speaking for this motion. I'm speaking for a motion which calls for packages to give immediate financial assistance to support council employees. Why wouldn't you support that? Obviously, we need stimulus funding. We know that all councils in New South Wales, including this one, have suffered from COVID-19 and are going to feel the effects of COVID-19 for some time. Any stimulus packages that we can get, we are going to be receiving gratefully. I do support this motion. I think it's a very good one.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, did you have a question?
No, I move an amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
What's your amendment, councillor?
My
Just
amendment
take it
is the
slowly.
mayoral,
Take it slowly.
yeah,
so
my
that-
amendment is the mayoral minute. The mayoral minute, as is written, mine is number 4.
Do you have a seconder for your amendment? So I just wanted to see what you're taking out. Can we just go back, Lisa, to see what was taken
So-
out? That
So what I'm
council
asking to
commence
be
in New South
removed is
Wales.
that the
Sorry,
state and federal
I'm just going to read it
government
out loud so everybody knows what you removed. The council commends the New South Wales and federal government on their stewardship during this crisis and commits to working in partnership to protect community health and sustain local economies through this crisis. You want that section removed?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, remove the section. Seconder for this motion, councillor. I'll just check, councillor Allgate, you're seconding this?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, speak to your amendment.
Yes, I agree with everything else that's written in the mayoral minute, other than perhaps the greater than $2 million in operating deficit. I think we are behind how far we should be when it comes to moving this. I think we should have done this a month ago to try and get money for our employees and the community. The reason I moved the amendment is I disagree. Neither the state nor the federal government should be commended when it comes to Broken Hill and the Far West. As a council and as a region, we should have been isolated from the rest of New South Wales, who had a high number of COVID cases. If that had happened and the state and federal government had taken the action they could have taken, we as a community may not have had to have closed our clubs, pubs, restaurants. We may not have a council that is now struggling financially. If these had been done by the state and federal government, we as a region may have been the few regions or areas in New South Wales and Australia that actually did quite well during the virus as far as economics go. We've had 2 cases in the entire time, and both of those recovered quite quickly. The state government did even a worse job than the federal government. The state government allowed a cruise ship, the Ruby Princess, to disembark passengers that accounted for 15% of overall cases and deaths of the coronavirus. I don't think we as a council should be patting the backs of the federal government and the state government in their handling, particularly when it comes to Far West New South Wales and Broken Hill. The numbers have been low compared to the rest of the world. That doesn't mean that the job they've done has been what's best for Broken Hill. We as a council have asked a number of times that we'd be isolated or protected from restrictions from other parts of the state, and perhaps that would have allowed us to come out of restrictions way faster than the rest of the state. I know there is members of parliament in the New South Wales that suggested that regional areas may be able to come out of restrictions far before Sydney and places in New South Wales. If indeed the state government had have done a job for the whole of the state instead of just Sydney, we in Broken Hill may not have been put through such vast increases in unemployment. We now have potential that our service clubs and pubs and restaurants, some of those may not survive what's happened. We have people that have lost their jobs that may lose houses or may lose other things. So to say that they've done a good job, I think, is not the best approach from this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers against the amendment, Councillor Clark. Just wait till the GM unmutes. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Speaking against the amendment.
I see where Councillor Kennedy is coming from, mentioning a cruise ship, because of course that was something which I think everybody would regret. However, in talking about commending the New South Wales and federal governments on their stewardship generally through this crisis, we had 2 cases here in Broken Hill. How much worse could it have been if we did not have the government's very firm stance on social distancing? They got in nice and early on that, social distancing, and also the frequent health messages regarding hygiene, which had to be drummed into communities over and over again. We can see people over on the coast at the moment, and especially around Sydney, who are protesting against these restrictions and flouting them indeed. And we can see the cases, the number of cases there are still increasing. They have not stopped as they have in Broken Hill. So I think that the government has, to the best of its ability, provided some sort of stewardship, some good stewardship really. When we compare our number of cases in Australia and in New South Wales, and certainly in Broken Hill, with what's going on overseas, where the stewardship of governments has not been as good as it has been here.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any further speakers for the amendment? No further speakers for the amendment? Okay. No further speakers for the amendment. I'll put the amendment, Councillor Kennedy's amendment. All those in favour, press the yes button for Councillor Kennedy's amendment. Councillor Allgate, Councillor Kennedy. All those against, press the no button. Councillor Councillor LeCour, Councillor Adams, Councillor Norman, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page and Mayor Turley. Thank you. I declare that amendment has been lost. We'll go back to the motion. Sorry, we'll go back to the motion. If there's no further speakers to the motion, I'll do my right of reply. Can I say, councillors, thank you for this debate. I think one of the interesting things is that I'm really concerned about misleading statements during the debate. Council endorsed my mayoral minute at the last the March meeting, and we have acted upon every one of those actions. We have certainly have, so I'm disappointed that it's been misleading that we actually haven't done that. We really need to do every council meeting, remind the government that we are here. We need to make sure they know the story of Broken Hill. We need to make sure they understand the economy of Broken Hill will be in crisis. And we need to make sure that at the end of the day, we are protecting our community. That is our priority. We should never step away from it. So with that, I'm going to put the mayoral minute. All those in favour, please press the yes button. And against, yes, all those in favour. I'll just read down this. In favour, Councillor Cool, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Page, Councillor Tom, Councillor Clark, and against is Councillor Allgate and Councillor Kennedy. Thank you, councillors. That motion is carried. We'll now move to notice of motion that has been given. Item 1, motion of notice which has been given, number 5/20, page 26, holding of ordinary meetings in the council chamber, moved by Councillor Kennedy. Do I have a seconder?
Pardon.
Councillor Allgate seconding it, thank you. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I will move the motion differently as is written. And that is that the motion of which notice has been given, number 5/20, dated April 17, 2020, be received. That the Broken Hill City Council. Yeah, no, it's all exactly the same until I get to this bit. So, that the Broken Hill City Council explain the importance, right to the Minister of Local Government, the Minister for Health, Brad Hazzard, and the member for our local member, Roy Butler, explaining the importance of council having its ordinary council meeting. So then just written the same. No, Lisa, just at number 2. So at number 2, where it says that the Broken Hill City Council, so just past that. So after that happens, I'd just like to put in that that Broken Hill City Council write to the local member Roy Butler and the Health Minister Brad Hazzard, explaining the importance of having its ordinary monthly meeting, and then exactly as written, in person. And then number 3 as is.
So it doesn't want number.
You don't want number 4? No, remove number 4.
No, that was just...
Okay, so just to make it easy for everyone, I'm going to read the motion. So the motion is the motion of which notice has been given, but there's an amendment. The Broken Hill City Council write to the local member and Minister for Health explaining the importance of holding the ordinary monthly council meeting in the council chamber, and that those councillors who do not want to attend in person be able to video link into the meeting. The Broken Hill City Council acknowledges the importance of in-person council meeting and also acknowledges the many people in Broken Hill that continue to work and provide in-person service in this time of COVID-19. Just wondering if that's, anyway, okay. So that's Councillor Allgate, you're seconding that. You're happy with second that? Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Kennedy, speak to the motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As all would know, the latest circular from that was on the 27th of April stated that if councils can video link, then they have to video link. What was before was that as long as councillors kept to the 4-metre rule and provided hand sanitizer, they could continue to meet face-to-face. Meeting face-to-face is important not only for the council but also for the community, to show that councillors are indeed taking their responsibilities as councillors importantly it shows that we are taking the time and effort to debate. Councillors would understand quite well from just what's happening now. It's very difficult to do visual links for council meetings. Normal meetings are relatively simple, but as far as debating and putting arguments forward about council matters and matters that affect the community so greatly, it's very difficult to take the same or put in the same amount of transparency, same amount of open debate as what happens at a council meeting. I think that the Minister for Health, Minister Brad Hazzard, needs to understand how important those face-to-face meetings are to the community and to the council and council's operations. We know about the 12th of May, I think it is, that the state government is going to start reopening its meetings. They've acknowledged how important it is for the level of state government to meet face-to-face. They need to also ensure and understand that councils meeting face-to-face is also important to make sure that we come up with the best decisions and best outcomes we can for the Broken Hill community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Speakers against? No speakers against. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Allgate, Councillor Page, Councillor Kennedy. All those against? Councillor Cook, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Clark, and Mayor Shirley. Declare the motion lost. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to item 2, notice of motion for which has been given, number 6/20, dated April 17th. Defer expenditure and work on the new library hub, page 29. Councillor Kennedy, you're moving that way?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
A seconder, Councillor Allgate. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are talking about an expensive works that we're talking maybe as much as $25 million, $20 to $25 million. We also, in this business paper, are talking about how council's struggling with finances. It's unknown and may take 24 months to get back to where we are. At this time, we should not be taking on any unknown financial liabilities, such as the library. It's been talked about the amount of money that it will generate. I would question some of those figures and question some of those figures strongly. If it was that easy to invigorate an economy with $20 million, I think our Prime Minister would probably be doing a little bit better with the economics than what we are at the moment. We are talking 2 to 3 generations to pay back the money that has been invested in the last month or so from the Prime Minister. Yet we have financial information, which I find very questionable. And in fact, I don't believe it at all. But we as a community have asked employees of council to take their long service leave, their holiday leave. We have closed other facilities. And until we know what the outcome of the corona or the COVID-19 crisis for council's finances, we should be making sure we do not embark on any new expenditure or new assets that have an unknown outcome for the community. The community have said time and time again that they're not for this grand design community hub. The community was interested in some sort of new library rather than move it to the Pluham Moors building in Argent Street. They haven't been asked since that. We suddenly have gone from a few $1 million to a $20 to $25 million complex that at this stage, with the COVID-19 crisis and the unknown financial impacts that it's going to have for Australia, the Broken Hill Council and the Broken Hill community and the businesses that are in Broken Hill. I think financially it's the sensible thing to do for the Broken Hill City Council. We have been told that our investments are in danger of being greatly affected and have already been affected greatly, but could be devastated as the economy goes forward. And we are still talking about a new library hub that costs $20 to $25 million. So as a council, we need to lead by example. We can't very well ask our employees of the council to take their long service leave and holiday leave to put council in a better financial position and then embark on a grandiose library hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any speakers against? Councillor Clark? Councillor Clark?
Yes, thank you. I was just waiting to be unmuted. There are a couple of points there that I would like to address. First of all, the reference to the infrastructure, if it was just that easy to reinvigorate an economy. I think that the Prime Minister and also the New South Wales Premier are recognising that that's going to be the way forward. They're already pushing forward with ideas of certainly boosting the infrastructure programs in Australia and in New South Wales. And indeed, I think that that is part of the funding boost that councils will be given, hoping that they are going to undertake infrastructure to increase employment. Another point there is that we are looking here at capital expenditure in the budget, not an operational matter. So that capital budget or that capital expenditure has been planned for and budgeted for and involves grant money as well. That is a lot of that has already been undertaken. A lot of that expenditure is already going to be accounted for, and we need to be pushing ahead with this, not least too. This is something which is a very positive thing for Broken Hill, something that's going to have a very positive outcome for our community when we come out of these dire circumstances that we are in at the moment with COVID-19 and with social distancing. We've had a very negative, depressing effect on our community, and this is something which I think is going to be embraced, is going to be a wonderful thing that's going to happen for our community, and we need to press on with that. We don't need to be putting the brakes on here. Let's get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there speakers for the motion? Councillor Allgate?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I have concerns the same as Councillor Kennedy does. The problem is that with all the unknowns that are currently facing the council and the state and the country, we're embarking on probably we're talking about embarking on the biggest building program that the council has had almost in its history. And at a time when I'm not sure that the community at large are terribly supportive of it. Some are, but there's a hell of a lot of people that when you talk to them about it and you talk about figures like 20 million plus, they back away quickly. The whole thing has been predicated on the fact that it's going to bring back volumes of people to Argent Street. I personally don't subscribe to that. I can't see that happening at all. It's been suggested that there'll be a coffee shop and this and that and the other. The coffee shop will just compete with 6 or 7 other coffee shops that are in the Argent Street main block and reduce the income of all of those. The problem is, in terms of the library, the funding, the total cost has not been proven at this stage as far as I'm aware. Secondly, the funding for the project, grants or otherwise, as well as the budgeted amount, is not proven. We're talking about losing money hand over fist. We were told at the briefing the other night that the $2 million deficit is what you're talking about in the interim, but other mitigating circumstances will probably arise. We also have the ongoing legal fees for the Civic Centre, and I'm not fully aware of what the outcome of that's going to be. And, you know, there's so many unknowns. It's okay to say that the state government's going to embark on these programs and all the rest of it. Their wherewithal is a bit better than ours. We should be looking at what the community expects, what the community wants, and what amount of money the community is prepared to put forward in terms of such a development, and how it might affect, given the extenuating circumstances of COVID-19, with so many unknowns about the overall cost that will be incurred by the council. That unknown, coupled with the fact that we're talking about spending $20 million plus we don't know how much it's going to cost us for the Civic Centre. We don't know what the result there is. And there are other things that, you know, we have to take into consideration all of the time when nothing is proven.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark, did you have a clarification?
I certainly would like a clarification of some of the comments that have been made there around the effect of the cost on the $2 million deficit, and perhaps the General Manager could make a comment about that. Can he clarify whether the ceasing of work on the library is going to have a profound effect on the $2 million deficit?
Do you understand?
If I understand your question, Councillor Clark, the answer is no. I mean, Council committed $1.5 million towards getting a shovel-ready project, essentially, a project that would be up to tender-ready, subject to funding coming in. About 1.2 or 1.3 of that's been committed and spent to date. So, no, there's no. If I'm understanding your question correctly, no, there's no impact there.
The reason I asked that question was the implication from the previous speaker was that we had this $2 million deficit, which was not going to be improved or was going to be made worse by the library. So by the expenditure on the library. So I wanted to clarify that there is no connection there between the capital expenditure on the library and the $2 million deficit.
Thank you. I'll just go back to the previous speaker. Did you see if Bob wanted to clarify that? I'll just go back to the previous speaker, to Councillor Allgate, to see if he wanted to clarify that.
I understand, well, I don't fully understand Councillor Clark's comment, but the thing is, the $2 million is obviously mostly operating costs. The library is a capital cost, but no matter what you say about the overall picture, the council has a bucket of money. Some of it's capital, some of it's operational. At the end of the day, there's a lot of mystery about what the final results will be in both areas. We don't know what the library is going to cost. Well, I don't know what the library is going to cost. We don't know what the overall impact of coronavirus will be in the longer term to the council in dollars and cents. we've been warned that there will probably be mitigating circumstances that mean that there will be an increase in the deficit. It's all right to talk about spending a lot of money when in fact you're looking down the barrel of massive debts. If there's a settlement for there might be separate issues, but if there's a settlement for the Civic Centre, we'll probably still be coming out of that losing $5 or $6 million or more. And yet we're talking about turning around spending 20 million that we haven't got. Anyway, that's my views.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, write a reply.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I particularly find the General Manager's comment in relation to the question asked by Councillor Clark quite concerning. We've just been given financial advice from our Manager of Finance that specifically talks about our investments and the loss of investment revenue. We are under a management fund. Not only can we lose our investment income, which we already have, which is just about being completely wiped out for the year, we could also lose the actual money we have invested. To say that there's no impact when we have money that is invested in investments, whether, as Councillor Allgate said, whether that money is earmarked for the library or not, we have about $18 to $20 million that is invested that will be significantly impacted by the COVID-19. To say that that $6 million that we put away for the library is there and safe, because that's for the library, is absolutely ridiculous. Our investment income is directly related to reserve. As that diminishes, so does our operational expenditure or our cash flow. So to say that there's no link between money we have and money that is invested, once we put that money from investments into a library, suddenly we don't have that investment income either. As Councillor Allgate said, the legal matters are important. We still don't know the outcome. Council's finances could be significantly impacted. They are already significantly impacted from that legal action that has been taken to do with the Civic Centre. If we lose that action, which we don't know, but if we lose that action, we don't know how we're going to cope through this. We also don't know when restrictions are going to be lifted for COVID-19. We all hope that it happens soon. But what's been made abundantly clear is that we can expect a second, third, fourth and fifth wave of COVID-19, which will result in closures. To think that we can build a library that's going to have income and bring income into Broken Hill City Council when the community is somewhere up there with fairies. We had to close our little library. We are talking losses of $6 million or $2 million in increased deficit from our little closures of our little organisations, our little library, our little geo centre. And now we're talking $20 or $25 million new library hub. These are significant amounts of money that we're talking. And as a council, at this stage, we shouldn't be spending money on infrastructure that is new to the town. If we want to spend money on infrastructure, we need to spend it on what we have. We've been told, and it's been identified to councillors, that our infrastructure is in great need of upgrading. That is the infrastructure we already have. This is the infrastructure that council should be spending our money on. This is the infrastructure that we should be spending money on, putting it out to the community to ensure that there is a lift in and people do feel confident. We certainly shouldn't be taking on a risky venture of building a new library when we don't know when this second, third or fourth wave of COVID-19 is going to happen. We don't know what the outcome of the legal action with the Civic Centre is. We do not know what the outcome is going to be for our investments in the short term or the long term. We were told that there will be potentially a $3 million increase in the deficit from June 30 to December 31. That's $3 million on top of the $2 million we've been told. We're talking $5 million in a number of 6 or 7 months, 8 months worth of operations. And we're talking about the library's the only thing that's secure. This is a thing that can't cost us money. This is a thing where it has no impact on council's finances. That is just honestly a statement that I cannot accept, a statement no one should accept, that building a library would not have an impact on council's finances. If we take out $6 or $10 million out of council's investments, of course it has an impact on not only other infrastructure that is happening in Broken Hill, but also an impact on our financial position as far as investment income goes. Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy. I'll put Councillor Kennedy's motion. All those in favour, please tick the yes button. Councillor Orgay, Councillor Kennedy. All those against? Oh, sorry, Councillor Page as well. So Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Page and Councillor Orgay in favour. And against, Councillor LeCour, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark, you're going to have to find your button down the bottom of your participants bar. And so where your participants bar, if you go down the bottom, you'll see yes or no, okay? So Councillor Clark and Mayor Turley, thank you, councillors. That motion is lost. We'll move to the third motion for Councillor Kennedy. This is the motion which has been given, report number 7/20. We'll just put Councillor Adams out into the waiting room. And this is notice of which has been given, reopening the council waste facility, page 32. Councillor Kennedy.
Yes, could I move this so people can actually hear? Because what's happening is, I don't know if people, when they actually see this, know what we're even talking about. So I move the motion so all councillors know what we're talking about. And the seconder, if someone wants to...
Circulated, councillor.
That
They
motion...
haven't circulated, so they know what motion. So
yeah, and I'm going to move the motion verbally.
Sorry,
I'll move the motion verbally.
I just need a seconder for your motion.
Well, I haven't moved it yet.
Thank you.
Righto, if I could move my motion so you could get a seconder, please.
I've got a motion, a seconder.
Well, I don't know if it's exactly how I'm going to move it, so I'll move my motion that the motion of which notice has been given, number 720, dated April 17, 20, be received. The Broken Hill City Council acknowledge information from the New South Wales Environmental Protection Authority that New South Wales councils are to keep waste facilities open to provide household waste needs, and that people are able to drive to the facility without risk of penalty. That the Broken Hill City Council opened the Broken Hill Waste Facility to the general public the morning following this council meeting. That the Broken Hill City Council immediately opened the waste facility to normal operating hours. That Broken Hill City Council prepares a report for the May meeting explaining why and whose authority the waste facility was closed to the public. That the Broken Hill City Council to implement processes to help mitigate the potential for harm from the COVID-19 virus. If I could have a seconder, thanks. Is the motion going to be seconded, Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor? I'm waiting for a seconder for the motion.
Sorry, I was on mute. Councillor Allgate seconded your motion, councillor.
Righto, then I'll put my argument forward. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
You can actually give your motion, yep, your argument.
Yes, thank you. The reason I moved this motion was quite obvious that it had a huge impact on the community. There was a number of emails written and Facebook posts done. I, as a councillor, contacted council immediately, questioning the media release that council was required to close its waste operations for fear of fines. It was quite clear right from the start that the actual change to the MEDIC 2010 Health Act did not require the closure of the dump. It stated there were 16 reasons to leave your home, and one of them was to go get services. My concern at the time when this was first released, this media release, was the potential impact that it was going to have on other businesses in town. To suggest that the only place you were able to go to business was for food or other things was a very dangerous press release that could have had huge impacts on other businesses in town. There's many businesses in town, mechanics, paint shops, window tinting such as mine, car yards, all these. These are businesses that potentially could have been affected by the statement that you potentially could be fined for leaving your house to go to non-essential businesses. That was never what was seen. It was food or other services or business. Never was the words essential put into the regulations for not being able to leave home. New South Wales State Government mentioned a number of businesses that would be closed due to restrictions. They were clubs, restaurants, beauticians, and a number of other businesses. Not at any time did it say that waste services should or would be closed and that you had the potential for a fine. Thankfully, it was explained to council after that this was not what was required. The other concern I have was that this didn't even come to a decision of council. I don't know when changes in operations of council did not require a decision of council to change policy. These are policy issues, not to day-to-day operations. Day-to-day operations are what happens after council sets policy. What that also did was the council has decided to reopen part of Saturday and none of Sunday. It may have huge savings for council's financial or bottom line, but the reality is there's still a huge percentage of people that in Broken Hill that work Monday to Friday. They need to be able to go to the waste facility on Saturday and Sunday. I don't know who comes up with these ideas, but I'm making it quite clear to the community and councillors right now that I, as a councillor, and the other councillors in this room did not move to limit operations at the dump. I am now giving councillors the opportunity to correct what has been done, and I'd hope that councillors vote to accept what I am saying, and that is the waste facility be open to normal operating hours. This will mean that people will not be entering the waste facility all at the same time. There'll be staggered operations, which will mean that it's safety. Everyone in Broken Hill and everyone in the community needs to understand that every ratepayer in this community pays a annual waste charge, which generates several $1 million for council, which is what pays for the operations at council. Council, I don't know if they're trying to siphon money out of that area into other areas. It has been suggested that we use one area to prop up others and get our bottom line. As far as waste facilities goes, it is essential. Council are now not only making money out of the annual charges from the rates that they give out, but they're also making a significant amount of money from user charges. And to then try and limit the operation hours of the waste services to save money or make additional money, because I'm sure there'd be a huge savings having no one employed on a Sunday out at the waste facility. But if you're going to do that, then also needs to be a reduction in what we collect from annual charges from people. If we are not going to keep the waste facility open, then people need to be given a reduction in their waste facility charges. We all know that the Act is quite specific. You should not collect any more from waste operations than what is required. If we're going to limit the operation hours down to potentially about under half what they currently used to be, then we should be charging people less money from annual waste services and user charges. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, I have Councillor Clark. You're speaking against the motion.
Just going to ask a question, Madam Mayor. Are we going to be reading out each motion that is before us? Because it's going to be a very long meeting if we're going to do that.
Well, we allowed that for Councillor Kennedy because he wanted it to be read out. Councillor LaCour, you're speaking against the motion?
I'll just have some questions. As I understand, it was an operational matter decision from the council management, but I'm wondering if the general manager could explain the rationale behind that decision.
Okay.
And why there were restrictions on the entry.
Thank you, Councillor. It is an operational issue, and I'll refer to the General Manager and also remind everybody that at the beginning of the pandemic, the rule was essential travel only, and nobody had clarification about that. So, Mr. General Manager?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I don't even know where to start with the comments that were just made, but anyway, so I won't even try and go there, other than to say that in September 2016, Council adopted a business continuity policy that delegated responsibility to the General Manager to manage in a crisis situation. I consider a pandemic to be a crisis situation. And there's a number of issues in that as per the previous mayoral minute and as were provided out again on Tuesday in terms of some of the key mechanisms to enable council and its officers to be able to manage through that. And the number one, so what I would say to your question, Councillor LaCour, is that from my perspective, the number one goal for me, or a couple of goals for me, but the number one goal was to make sure that more broadly, the health and well-being of the community was foremost in my mind. And then as a microcosm of that, of course, making sure that council staff, the health and safety of council staff was maintained, and also to make sure that my staff were able to get a paycheck from fortnight to fortnight managing through this pandemic, no matter what that might look like. And of course, as part of that, there was a requirement to scale back our operations. And again, just to correct a couple of little bit of misinformation earlier too, staff haven't been made to take long service leave and annual leave. They've been requested to take excess leave, which is as per the award. So, and so really it's been about managing, it's a holistic approach, it's a holistic view, it's about managing the entire organisation to make sure that A, everybody gets a paycheck, and B, everybody gets, is well and healthy out of all of this. The number one priority for us, or certainly for me, around nominating essential services was the collection of domestic waste. That's the fee that people pay, and that's the fee that we charge, and we've maintained and been able to maintain that weekly collection. We even were able to expand that out on account of the fact that the waste facility was closed. We were able to do that. People were still getting their waste collected, and we've been working, I guess, just trying to manage that staffing group and making sure that redeploying people where we could. People that had excess leave were able to take that leave, and we were able to use people that didn't have leave or were new to the organisation. We were able to redeploy them into essential services and retrain as far as waste. So it's a little bit, again, it's a little bit hard to describe this one-dimensionally because there's so many other facets and prongs of it that go right across the organisation. But Councillor McCool, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Did you have another question, Councillor?
Yeah, I did. Thank you very much for that explanation. I'm just wondering how far away is a review of the operating hours of the TIP? Thank you.
Mr. General Manager, is the TIP open?
Well, the TIP's currently open, as I hope everyone's aware. Councillor Kennedy alluded to the fact that, albeit at restricted hours, 8 till 1 each day, and then open on Saturdays, also and closed on Sundays. A lot of that at the moment has to do with our ability to resource. Again, making sure it's a balancing act. It's about making sure that the $2 million that has been discussed, obviously that's the upper end of what we'd be expecting to be the impact on revenue, projected impact on revenue, and then anything we can, of course, that we can do to mitigate that from on the expenditure side will be seen to reduce that projected impact on the council. But I would think that after May 11, someone referred to the May 11 date earlier on, and I think National Cabinet are going to meet and talk about opening, relaxing restrictions. I think at that point, once we see what the government are putting forward, that may well be an opportune time to seek to relax some of our restrictions as well. And again, that goes across council's other facilities such as library, art gallery, and our own administration centre here. So we're waiting on some advice from the government in terms of next steps, in terms of relaxing those restrictions. And you will be in a better position after that discussion on National Cabinet on May 11 to know what the next steps are for Broken Hill City Council.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan, are you? I just need
question, if that may be, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
This question is to the General Manager, and I might say if he could maybe speak up a little, or if you could raise the volume at your end. I'm having a lot of trouble hearing all that he's saying. However, I'll try to make the question brief. Am I correct in understanding that with the staged reopening of the TIP, the running cost or the manning is an issue? In other words, is this about regulation? Is it about health and safety, or is it about cost saving for the manning of the weighbridge, etc.? Please explain.
Well, it's all of the above. I mean, in my view, and based on the information that we had prior to Easter, waste wasn't travelling to the waste facility, particularly if you provided a domestic waste service, pickup as we do, wasn't considered an essential service. Now, just on the eve of Easter, that was clarified, and that meant that we were able to, as quickly as we possibly could, we were able to make that change and relax and reopen with some restricted hours. So it's a combination of all of those things. But again, Councillor Nolan, not just simply related to waste per se. It goes right across the whole gambit of what we do and what we deliver in terms of services as a council, and balancing act to try and get that right.
Okay, thank you, councillors. If you're having trouble hearing Councillor Nolan, perhaps a headset would help. Put a headset on. Thank you, you're on mute. Sorry?
I have tried a headset and it doesn't seem to be compatible. I'm going to see if I can purchase something again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, if there's no debate against the motion, Councillor Kennedy, you're right to reply.
Yes, thank you. Again, when you hear these comments, it opens up more questions than it answers. The continuity plan cannot breach the Local Government Act. 377 of the Act spells it out quite clearly that councillors are in charge of all expenditure, reducing or increasing. That's what councillors are in charge of. We cannot delegate that responsibility to the General Manager. There's a circular or a press release given out by the President of the Local Government Association making it quite clear the importance of council meetings and the importance of councillors to continue to meet their obligations and make their decisions. You cannot delegate your decision-making obligations to the general manager or anyone else. It might be fine to say that they've been given. Council can't give them. Council has given them, and we're in a situation now where councillors aren't making the decision. Councillors are being told what decisions are being made, and bad luck. The community aren't involved, and normally the community get the opportunity before council makes significant changes to operations. The community gets the chance to make comment via public submissions, 28 days notice to significantly change policy. We changed the policy of the operations of the waste facility overnight. It's fine for the general manager or councillors to say that it was clarified not that long ago, it was clarified that we could keep the dump open. Wouldn't the sensible thing and the thing that the community expect, and particularly councillors expect, that would be clarified before council changed its operations and closed the dump? Council should have been making sure they understood. No, council took it on themselves and then it was clarified. Council should have actually clarified the situation before they changed it. It's what's I find particularly peculiar. It was quite clear to me, and I sent that through to council, so I don't know why council couldn't get that information. The other thing that was concerning about what was said by the general manager, this is about cost savings and savings in resources, all of the above. Waste charges and annual charges for waste are only to be used for waste services. So if you are taking employees out of waste services and putting them somewhere else to save money throughout the operations, you are over collecting at the waste facility. You are not to charge more than is reasonably expected to cover the costs of waste operations. If you are saving as a general manager and a council, and now all the councillors are aware of this, that the general manager is saving on or cutting costs by using employees at the dump elsewhere to reduce the operational deficits across all of council, and continues to collect the same amount of money from ratepayers, it is a breach of the Act. It is a clear breach of the Local Government Act when it comes to collecting waste services. The general manager might want to talk, but you've got to remember, the councillors make the decisions. And what I've noticed tonight so far is that the council are getting the general manager involved in debate. The general manager's not there to be involved in debate. Councillors are here to debate what's going on. The general manager's there to provide factual information, not to be part of the debate. And that is exactly what's going on. And that's the problem with this council at the moment under this guise of an emergency order that does not exist in the Local Government Act. You cannot delegate your responsibilities or your obligations as a councillor to the general manager. Everyone knows what the local minister changed. The local minister changed the date of the next election and changed the fact that we could video conference into meetings. Not that the general manager and the management of council take over the decision-making processes of the Broken Hill City Council.
Just for clarification, Mr. General Manager, before I go to Branko, I think there might have been, you want to clarify?
Oh, Madam Mayor, I need to say that at no point did I say that we were taking staff out of the waste facility and redeploying them to other parts of the organisation. So that's just completely and utterly incorrect.
Thank you. Councillor Cool, you have a question?
I just wanted to make a point that I was asking a question of the general manager so that all councillors could get information. I'm certainly not dragging the general manager into debate. So I think Councillor Kennedy was being pretty disingenuous in that comment. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kennedy, I'm going to put the motion. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yes, can we not have councillors speak and bring extra information into the debate after I've had my right to reply? it really brings the whole process into a little bit of disrespect. You know, if Councillor LeCool, I didn't mention Councillor LeCool or just put him out of order or anything like that. Can we not have new stuff brought into the debate after I've had my right to reply? Thank you.
I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour of Councillor Kennedy's motion. Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Page, Councillor Allgate. All those against? Councillor LeCool, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Mayor Turley. Declare the motion lost. We note that Councillor Adams was declared a conflict of interest. I'll ask Councillor Adams to come back into the council chamber. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. That motion was lost. So, Councillor, we're moving to the next next motion. Sorry, Councillor Adams, did you want to say something?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I would like to foreshadow a motion of urgency.
After this one, okay, foreshadow a motion of urgency. Okay, thank you, Councillors. We'll move to item 4, motion of which has been given, the New South Wales local government election, page 35. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to move this motion?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll move that the notice of motion be received, that Broken Hill City Council sends correspondence to our local member Roy Butler and the Minister for Local Government, informing them that as Council we believe that the New South Wales local government election should not be delayed until September 2021, and that the New South Wales local government election should be held in September 2020 or as soon as social distance restrictions are eased. That Broken Hill City Council supports democracy and the right of our community to choose who they want to lead the city coming out of the COVID-19 crisis, and supports doing all we can as a council to ensure local government elections are held in September or as soon as possible after that date.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Seconded.
It's seconded by Councillor Allgate. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this motion. I'm sure that all councillors would agree that democracy is very important to a community. Having a good council is very important to the community. I, as a councillor, I'm sure there's other councillors that have been contacted by many people that are interested in being part of this council, and I'm honoured to think that so many people would want to be part of this council. I, as one councillor, have been contacted by doctors, teachers, a number of lawyers, a couple of miners, other tradesmen, business people, probably in excess of 30 or 40 people that have made it known to me that they would like to be part of this council. I think there's some very good people that have come to me that I'm sure the community would be more than willing to elect. I know that would mean that there'd be some councillors and potentially the mayor may lose their position as mayor or councillors, but I'm still sure that the councillors and the mayor believe in democracy and believe that if the community think that someone else can do a better job than we can, then they should be there and be given the opportunity. Let's all remember that September 2020 was when the elections were to be held. As councillors, we have been in the position where we don't have to campaign. The job that we've done over the 4 years is what tells the community what sort of councillors, what sort of people are, how we vote. So from a perspective as councillors and the mayor, we have been putting ourselves forward for this entire time. Other people in the community would not expect to be campaigning this far out from an election. The election's called about 8 weeks before before an election is to be held. That then starts the countdown to the election. About 2 months is all that is ever required for an election. And we should be doing all we can to make sure that people of Broken Hill are given their opportunity to stand and represent this community. Western Australia, for example, has 2 by-elections in the next month. They know the importance of local government elections. They know the importance of making sure we have sound, reliable representation that the community can trust. Queensland, in the middle of the coronavirus, held their elections. We had South Korea, who is going to have a federal election in the middle of the coronavirus and who is facing far worse outcomes than what we are in Australia. Our elections are important to everyone. The state government, I think, made a grave error in acting too soon to reduce the election by too long. I've spoken to a number of politicians that believe that it was ridiculous to delay it till September next year, 12 months. I don't know why any minister or any person in government would think that you need 18 months to campaign for local government election. We, as a council, may all get re-elected, may not get elected. But what I am very focused on is the ability of the community to be given the opportunity, and those 40 odd or so people that have already come to me are given the opportunity to put a case forward so that they may become councillors or mayor of this city. And there should be no councillor is opposed to this. Councillors need to, and the thing with being a councillor is elections come around and you may not get re-elected. That is a fact of life. We need to make sure that democracy holds on in this city, and we, as one council at least, lets the local government minister know that we in Broken Hill believe that elections should happen. We as a community pay for our elections ourselves, no matter when they're on. It's not necessarily run from the Electoral Commission or anyone else.
Time's really up, councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So even if no one else in the state has a local government election, we could still ask the minister to allow us as Broken Hill to have one, as other councils are allowed to have by-elections. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor LaCour, are you questioning or speaking against?
Speaking against, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor.
Madam Mayor, I don't think anyone would argue that we're all in for democracy. I don't believe we need to go here because the New South Wales government may change their mind next week or next month. This environment's changing on a daily basis. Councillor Kennedy's talking about people who've raised the issue with him. They may have. No one's raised the issue with me at all. And I've actually sought out people to ask their opinion. And most people said they don't care. They've got much more important and worrisome things to think about at this time. And I think the rationale behind it was not to put an unnecessary pressure onto the council and the community with an election. But again, New South Wales government, they could change their mind next week. So I don't think we need to go there. I think we need to just wait it out for a little while. That's all, thanks.
Thank you. Speakers for the motion? Speakers for? Thank you, Councillor Allgate.
Yeah, I'm just, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just surprised that the comments made by Councillor Cool, people are not interested. I find that astounding. Actually, separate to Councillor Kennedy, I've had quite a few people. I don't get around out as much as I used to, but people have sought me out to talk about a range of things relating to the council, and the postponement of the elections is one that's really very high on their list. Now, I know I probably mix with people that are much older than Councillor Cool's circle of friends, but the people I'm talking about, they're quite conservative and intelligent people. they in their own way follow much of what the council's been doing or doesn't do. And they continue to say, when this subject comes up, that, as Councillor Kennedy says, democracy should prevail. The people, the townspeople, the ratepayers, should have the opportunity to elect who will be councillors, and that opportunity should come at the appropriate time. To move the elections out as far as the government have, and I accept that they may change their mind, but this is about the council seeking to encourage the government to change their mind, not to sit back and wait and see if they do change their mind, but to bring about the elections at the appropriate time. We're talking about a fair time. They've made this decision a fair time in advance. Things might be much better, or they may be much worse. But as many other councillors, as many other states have done, and overseas countries and whatever, I can't see, if the social distancing rules are observed, there's not a problem with holding the elections. And I think the council should be mindful of the fact that the people should have the voice. And if the elections are postponed, their voice or their thoughts and their votes and their voices are unheard.
Thank you, Councillor. Right of reply, if there's no further speakers, right of reply, Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to reiterate what Councillor Allgate said, and also state that I was quite surprised to hear from Councillor LaCour that people were thinking that there's more important things and council elections are just not worrisome for them. I have myself have actually heard from hundreds of people that are concerned about the election and the postponement of the election. To have about 40 people interested in running for council or mayor at this stage is a lot of people. Nowhere in the history or in the 21 odd years that I was been involved in local government have I had more people contact me. So we must actually go in different circles, but democracy is important. Democracy is something that shouldn't be delayed if it can. It might be fine to say that the state government's going to change it here and going to change it there. And Councillor LaCour said that he supports democracy, and he's also sure that other councillors do as well. Then the easiest way to prove that democracy is important is to let the state government know that we want elections to be held in September or as soon after as possible. That may not happen because ultimately it will be up to the state government, but we need to, as a council, let the Minister of Local Government know and the community know we believe in the right of the people to have democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hope Central Darling has an election next year too. I'm going to put the vote. All those in favour for Councillor Kennedy's motion. Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Page, Councillor Allgate. All those against? Councillor LaCour, Councillor Adams, Councillor Jim, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Mayor Shirley. The motion is lost. Thank you, everybody. We'll now go to Councillor Adams. You've got a foreshadowed motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I just, in this time of stress and uncertainty, Brokenham City councillors I would hope to publicly acknowledge our complete support for the Mayor, the General Manager, Senior Management Team and workforce in meeting the challenges for our community and our way of life during this current COVID-19 crisis. That is the opening of a statement that was approved by most councillors, and I would acknowledge Councillor LaCour, whose name was inadvertently not placed on that when it was put into the BDT. With that in mind, I think we would like to express, or I certainly would express, a disappointment with some councillors' unwillingness to work with council, and ask that all councillors refrain from public comment, including social media that undermines council's activities at this difficult time, and ask that all councillors represent the community within the laws available to them and not promote unreasonable expectation within the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving that way. Is there a seconder? A seconder. Councillor Brown has seconded the motion. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think that the first comment is self-explanatory. As I said, it is copied from a statement that was put in as a letter of support from the BDT. And you yourself has touched on some of the things tonight that the councillor, in particular yourself, have done at this time in keeping in contact with governments and so on. And it is a difficult time for our community. And for me, I believe that councillors, we should be actually supporting our council and not criticising decisions made. If a councillor does have a problem or a question, let them approach the relevant council staff before putting it out to the general public. It's irresponsible for any councillor to promote action through Facebook that is known to be impossible for council to implement, usually because the decisions are influenced by external factors. And there are some examples, and I'm sorry, but these are the ones that jump out at me. Councillor Kennedy's comments re the opening or the closure of the waste transfer facility, which council was responding to of information that was given to them at that time. Criticism of the council's lack of closing borders when he knew full well we had no authority to do so. And calling for meetings within chambers where legislation rules that out. Passing on the mayor's mobile phone via Facebook to people angry for whatever reason through his Facebook page. And, I find that incredible because he could have just referred people to that, and they could have rang any of us that do have mobile phones, which there is 9 of us. We have to follow the rules of the state government, and for the delay in elections, for example, was supported by the LGA and the Electoral Commission and concerned 128 councils across Australia. These are difficult times. It's imperative we work together. I know this motion may be contentious for some, and so it's up to my fellow councillors to decide whether it's accepted or not.
Thank you, councillor. I have a speaker against the motion, councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll speak against the motion. I find it totally inappropriate for a councillor to go into a council meeting and verbally in a public setting, verbally criticise a councillor, and then not only verbally criticise that councillor, but publicly name that councillor as doing wrongful things outside of council. We as councillors also have the right as public citizens and private citizens of this community to have to put our voices forward. This in itself is a breach of the Act. I don't know what or why the Mayor would even allow this to be said. It's fine to write this, but then to go on, Councillor Adams, and then to go on and verbally abuse, criticise a councillor in a public setting is completely beyond me, leaves me totally shocked, and I'd hope the community takes notice of the action Councillor Adams has taken. She talks about working together as she singled me out as a councillor for criticism in a public arena, and I've in my entire time as a councillor, this has never happened from any other councillor, from any member of the staff. This complete contempt for a colleague of council. Thank you.
Sorry. Any further speakers? Speakers for the motion? I have councillor, sorry, I haven't got any further speakers for the motion. I'll put the motion. Councillor, sorry, Tom, are you speaking Are you seeking a clarification?
I'm moving an amendment, thanks, Madam Mayor.
What's your amendment, councillor?
I move that councillors public acknowledge and support the Mayor, the General Manager, senior management team and workforce in meeting the
Slowly, thank you, councillor.
I haven't changed. I'll just say when I've changed something, okay? So councillors publicly acknowledge, remove our complete. Council acknowledge the support of the Mayor, the General Manager, senior management team, workforce and other councillors in meeting the challenges of our community and way of life during this COVID-19 crisis.
That's it. Okay, you're moving that amendment. Can you hold on, please?
Yep.
Councillor Allgate, you're seconding the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor, speaking to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, these are difficult times and we're not going to get it all right. And I wouldn't expect the General Manager or other senior management to get this right. As people have said, and it is unprecedented times, it's not easy and it's far from easy. But that doesn't mean that councillors stop holding each other to account or debating them and making sure the community holds us all to account. I support the Mayor, the General Manager, senior management, workforce and other councillors because it really is hard and I understand how hard it is. I'm sure that councillors have been contacted and I'm sure that it's particularly difficult for the Mayor. The Mayor is in the position where they are going to get more criticism than anyone else. They're the person at the top. That's the person that's going to get blamed. And that's why I support the Mayor. The Mayor has done all the Mayor can do as far as the Mayor thinks is right. That doesn't mean that when it's not up to what I believe it is, that I won't do what I can to deliver what I believe is right from the community. The General Manager has been in a position where it is extremely difficult. This is a position where the General Manager is having to worry about employees, worrying about a loss of income. These are the same worries that every business in town is having. I run a business. I understand how hard it is for the General Manager. The senior management team, also very difficult. This is a time when you have to tell people that you're worried there may be no job or we may have to cut services. Of course it's hard. The workforce, they are working differently to the way they are, and councillors as a whole. So to suggest that I or any other councillor doesn't think that it's hard or does think that the General Manager isn't trying his hardest or the Mayor isn't trying her hardest would be completely wrong. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree or keep my mouth shut on things that I don't agree with. And I will continue to fight for what I agree with and what people have come to me. But I'm more than happy to say that I support the Mayor, the General Manager, the senior management, workforce and other councillors during these tough times.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers against the amendment? There's no speakers against. The amendment, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Allgate. All those against? Councillor LaCour, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark and Councillor Page. The amendment's lost. I'll ask Councillor Adams for her right of reply.
I have written as I believe is correct, Madam Mayor, and I'll leave to my fellow councillors to make the final decision.
Thank you. I'll put the motion, Councillor Adams's motion. All those in favour? All those in favour, Councillor LaCour, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Mayor Shirley. All those against is Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Allgate. Declare the motion carried. And I want to thank everybody on behalf of the General Manager and the staff for their support, particularly, Tom, those kind words you said for your amendment. I appreciate your support. Thank you. We'll now move to, we'll now move to reports. And report number 1, page 39, correspondence report for the Menindee Lakes system, moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconder Councillor Adams. Sorry, Councillor Brown's hand was up already, my apologies. Councillor Kennedy, are you speaking?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this is an important piece of correspondence that has been sent back by Melinda Pavey. It virtually says they are interested in transmission losses and evaporation losses, and in the next meeting or two I will write a detailed report on the benefits of Menindee Lake and environmental losses, and hopefully put that to the council in the coming months. What this enables us to do, because the New South Wales government has acknowledged it and they are pushing it, trying to push it on a federal level. What this will enable us to do is, if the Menindee Lakes is used, instead of evaporation being a negative, it will then become a positive, which will move towards satisfying New South Wales contributions to flows from the Darling to the Murray River. So this is a promising and encouraging bit of correspondence from the New South Wales government, and I thank the council for being involved to make sure this was sent in the first instance. Thank you.
Thank you. You're aware, Councillor, every motion gets acted upon in terms of as quickly as we can the next day of all our letters. If there's no speakers against, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? That's a unanimous vote. Thank you, councillors. Move to item 2, page 42, amendment to Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Mover Councillor Brown, you're moving that way? Oh, Councillor Nolan's moving that way. Councillor Nolan. Seconder, Councillor Clark. Councillor Nolan, do you want to speak to the motion?
Not in particular, Madam Mayor. I think it's a good thing, and I think we should just get on with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Speakers against? No speakers against. Councillor Kennedy, you're speaking against the motion?
Yeah, I'll speak against the motion. The Local Government Act is quite specific, particularly 360 and 366 of the Act. What it actually states is that all that is required for an extraordinary meeting to be held is 2 councillors to sign advice to that. Council would be inconsistent with the Act by moving this. The Code of Meeting Practice would be inconsistent with the Act. It will be tested almost immediately, as there is a matter that I think is urgent, and I will be calling for an extraordinary meeting in the next week or so. So it will be tested. I will not be supplying supportive arguments or the motion that I will be moving. It will be calling for an extraordinary meeting without those. If it is not held within the 2 weeks, I will then go to the Department of Local Office of Local Government, and this matter will be sorted out one way or the other. Councillors have a right to put things on the agenda in the manner that the Local Government Act has required. As a council, you cannot put more of an impost on me as a councillor or other councillors. The reality is we as councillors put our argument at council meetings. What's been quite clear over a period of time and has been told to many councillors over that period of time, your argument should not be so fixed that you cannot be swayed at a council meeting. The reality is council meetings, decisions are made at council meetings by debate. The debate that's put forward decides the overall outcome. So for me to put a rigid argument forward on any motion puts me in a position where I'm not taking notice of other councillors or the debate that would be put forward. This is why that is not already there in the Act about putting arguments, because councillors should go in there with a relatively open mind so that they listen to the debate and are able to be swayed one way or another from the debate that is put forward by other councillors. So because I think that democracy and making good decisions is very important to the community and Broken Hill, I will test this motion's credibility the first opportunity I get. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Clark.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I am. I'm just a little puzzled as to why Councillor Kennedy would want to be denying his fellow councillors information which would allow them to be fully informed before the council meeting so that they can engage in debate or ask questions of council employees to see just what sort of implications there may be, whether it would be, implications regarding policy or financial implications. I'm just wondering, what is it? Why deny your fellow councillors that opportunity? At an ordinary council meeting, we would be horrified, and I'm sure Councillor Kennedy would be the first one to be horrified if we were not given background information, if we were not supplied with budgetary implications regarding policy, and we were asked to make a decision on the run. And that's exactly what's happening here. I can't see that there's anything wrong with this change at all. There's certainly no breach of the Act with 366, because all that's asking for is a requirement that a request for a meeting be made in a timely manner, and along with that request, with that motion, should be the background information going with it, any sorts of process that might be followed, any outcomes that might be expected. I can't see the problem at all, and I'm really dumbfounded as to why you would be expecting anybody to go into a meeting blind without giving them proper information. If the idea of making a request for an extraordinary meeting is to put towards the council something that was so urgent it could not possibly wait for an ordinary meeting, you would want your fellow councillors to be fully informed so that they could make the best decisions for the community. That's it. I'm putting that forward. Dumbfounded.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers against the motion? If not, Councillor Kennedy, you have a question?
I think Councillor Clark actually asked me why I would do that. So
I'm not referring it to you, Councillor, though.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just saying that it was asked of me. Under the Act, councillors can ask other councillors questions, and those other councillors are then given the opportunity to respond. I was asked a question directly from a councillor in relation to why I would do this or why I'd expect that. Those questions have been asked, and under the Act, councillors can ask other councillors, or ask the mayor, or ask members of staff. Councillor Clark actually asked me several questions which I'd like to respond to.
We'll respond, councillor.
Thank you. Because under the Act, it's not required. The other things mentioned with staff, with recommendations, yes, I would be horrified because they are required under the Act. The problem I have with putting things in code of meeting practice, who decides what's a good enough argument forward? If I just put the argument, I'm for it because of this, and it's only one sentence, what it leaves it open to is for someone to say, well, I don't think it's good enough, so it won't be on the agenda. That's the problem I have. The more you put it, then the bigger or the more information that's required, the more likely it is that someone could decide that that's not up to scratch. That's why it says for an extraordinary meeting, all you need is 2 signatures, because then there is no doubt. When the 2 signatures are there, the meeting must be held. I have no problem putting a supportive argument for if councillors would like to see that, but I would not like to see a notice of motion or an extraordinary meeting stopped because someone then decided my argument was not in enough detail, or there was something else not in enough detail. That's when democracy breaks down, and that's when people start to get frustrated, and so do the community, because then the rules apply more to one person than another. That is my concern.
Thank you. I'm just going to Councillor Clark. Your hand is still up. We're in debate. You've already spoken for the motion. Were you clarifying anything?
Sorry?
Were you clarifying something?
I'm clarifying that it was a rhetorical question. Councillor Kennedy was not required to answer, but it was an interesting answer, and it still does not make anybody less flexible at a meeting to be able to explain themselves. And certainly, if an argument placed with a motion that came with a request for an extraordinary meeting wasn't clear enough, it could be returned to the applicant and asked for more detail. They wouldn't necessarily be prevented from having a meeting. It is not designed to stop people having meetings. It is not designed to stop people's freedom of speech or whatever other argument could be offered.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, we've had a speaker for the, We've had a speaker against the motion. We've had a speaker for the motion. Is there another speaker against? No speakers against. Okay, Councillor Nolan, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. Well, this motion is about getting clarity. It's about better information, which informs better decision making. So I do believe it is democratic and does add to the democratic process. Therefore, I believe it's an improvement on the current situation. Like many, I don't believe in making policy on the run. What I do believe in is being best informed as possible before a meeting so that I can reason some arguments instead of having to think what might be coming next and then make a decision that might not be fully informed. So therefore, I believe this motion is an improvement on the current situation and deserves a vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Could you please mark your spots? Okay, all those in favour, Councillor Cool, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Mayor Turley. Against is Councillor Allgate. I'm sorry, I've missed someone. Is Councillor Allgate and Councillor Kennedy. Did I get Councillor Page?
I think Councillor Page may have dropped out.
Okay, we note that Councillor Page has dropped out. Louise, we might see if you can check to see if he's having problems. Okay, thank you for that. The motion is carried. We'll now move to item 3, report number 48/20, page 82, COVID impacts business and budgetary. Can I have a mover for that, please? Moving by Councillor Kennedy. Seconder. Councillor Adams. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak?
I think we should postpone the meeting until we find out whether Councillor Page has left or he is having technical difficulties. This is, if it was a proper council meeting, we would know if he'd left. Until that's confirmed, I think we need to adjourn the meeting because
we need to progress. Councillor Louise is on the line to him. You can start your debate.
Yeah,
the motion.
But you're leaving a councillor out of the decision-making process of what's going on. That if the councillor means to be here and it's a technical issue, then we should be waiting. We shouldn't be leaving him out of important decision-making.
Just hold a minute and we'll check with Louise.
He's got a flat battery, he's getting him in now.
He's had a flat battery, he's rejoining now.
Councillor Cool has a flat battery as well. He's going home to get his lead.
And I think mine will be flat too soon.
So can I say that we need to, Councillor Kennedy, you need to plug yourself in because we've got Councillor Page's back.
Oh yeah, I'll go, if you just wait a sec, I'll just go grab a charger.
Welcome back, Councillor Page. Can we just mute for a second? Sorry?
You're back on.
Councillor LaCour has said he's an apology until he gets recharged. So we'll now move, we've got Councillor Kennedy has moved this motion. Councillor Adams seconded it. Councillor Kennedy, you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Kennedy?
Sorry. Oh yeah, righto. No, that's fine, Madam Mayor.
Okay, there's no debate. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? All those in favour, please tick your box.
Sorry.
So we're putting the vote, Councillor. So Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Mayor Shirley, who have I missed? Councillor Page is still connecting. Okay, put your hand up, Councillor Page, if you're voting. Sorry, Councillor Page is still connecting. Councillor Tom was also a yes. So I'll just go through that list again. Councillor Clark, you're not voting? Thank you, Councillor Clark. So Councillor Tong, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, and we're just having trouble with Councillor Page getting his system back up. Louise, can you ask him to put his thumbs up if he's saying yes? Sorry, Councillor Clark, we're just waiting for Councillor Page to get back with us. Councillor Clark, are you, Councillor Clark?
Yes,
Let's see.
I'm just worried that Councillor LaCool has been completely missed out of the vote.
No, I said, if you'd heard, we actually said Councillor Cool has had to step out for a moment while
Yeah, but
he
you will
actually
be
gets.
counting his vote, will you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we don't count his vote. The quorum is what is in front of us at this stage.
Well, just so long as he's not counted as voting against it.
No, we've noted he's not part of the vote.
Okay.
We're just waiting to see what Councillor Page is doing.
All right.
Louise? Okay, Councillor Page, are you voting yes for this motion? Yes, thank you.
Hold
Okay, clear
Hold
all
on.
things, councillors.
on. Can you just let me speak?
Yeah,
My computer went flat, so I've had to plug it in and reboot it. So I've only got back in. So what motion we voting on?
oh, sorry, councillor, that was the one. It was unanimously so far about the COVID. Item 3,
Right.
report number 48/20, the impacts of the business and budgetary.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are you voting yes?
Yes.
Thank you, councillor. We move to item 4, and it is report number 49/20. We'll ask Councillor Adams to step outside for this. We'll put her in the waiting room. And it is report number 49/20. Do I have a mover for this motion? Do I have it moved by Councillor Brown? Seconder? Seconder for the motion? I have no, Councillor Clark, thank you. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, I think that was a very comprehensive report, I think, and it did take great pains to remind us that we are being asked to approve a minor change of hours for public access during the week with a 1 hour extra a day, and which is 5 extra hours a week, but 4.5 less hours on a weekend, and the addition of the 12 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the week. But in my view, the arguments in favour of this change and the answer to the possible objections to that have been pretty clearly put. I think we have to keep in mind that the business currently is at the back of the houses, which are now across the road from the new building, and I believe that the new building is much superior in terms of noise suppression and so on. And if by chance it isn't, and noise seems to be the issue for the residents in the surrounding area, then the EPA requirements about noise acceptability would come into play, so that there is quite a lot of protection there for the nearby residents.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Speakers against? Councillor Kennedy, I think you just.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Minor changes is a bit of an understatement. We're talking 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, 7 days a week. The minor changes, so outside those hours, we're talking mine maintenance. So it's actual 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. What we are talking about in this motion is increase the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, 7 days a week. That is a lot to expect a residential property to put up with. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no one in this room that would like that to happen near their place. I'm a supporter of Nee James Still and Scotty Campbell. I think that what's been done with that shed is great, that he spent the money to do that business. And I have no problems with the hours that are now, and the people that lived across the road were supportive when it come to those hours. But to think that 12 hours a day, 7 days a week is acceptable, where his business may be on industrial land, but it is completely across the road from residential properties. This is, council has to be consistent in what they're doing. They have knocked back a number of places and said they're not allowed to have this amount of hours and that amount of hours, with maybe because there's going to be a drill turned on. And then we have councillors saying from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is acceptable, and the Environmental Protection Authority will come into play if the noise goes beyond that. I would hate to think that this then becomes the new precedent. Whenever someone applies for a business 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, 7 days a week, and could use this to argue that why is council giving extra for some businesses and not others? 12 hours. I'm just astounded that any councillor would think that was acceptable in a residential area. And I would doubt there's a councillor in that room that would think it was acceptable but to be across the road from their house, and would do all they could to stop it. As I said, I'm supportive of business and supportive of the hours of operation that are now, but there's no way I can support extra hours and the impost it'll have on the community or the residents in that area. I feel sorry for them if this gets up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Page, you're speaking for the motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make it very clear. Scotty has five apprentices employed there. He employs a huge amount of local people. If we want this town to survive, we have to look after the younger people. We have to make sure that people have jobs. And what he's planning for the future will create a lot of employment, a lot of funding for our city. And Scotty just doesn't deal with the mines. He has lots of contracts and brings fresh money into Broken Hill. So I personally feel proud that Scotty's done the amount of work he's put into it and spent his money. Huge amounts of money is invested in the future of Broken Hill in this proposal. And Scotty has my full support, and so do the apprentices.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Is there any other speakers against the motion? Councillor Allgate, you're speaking against?
Yes, well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not unsupportive of Scotty Campbell by any means. He's to be admired in terms of his investment in the town and the fact that he employs local labour and a good percentage of apprentices. I just worry about this setting a precedent. It's going to be very hard for the council to knock back any future businesses that are located within normal proximity to residences. If you allow this one to go 7 till 7 days a week, I don't see how you can knock back anybody else. It sets a very serious precedent, and for that reason alone, I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark, you're speaking for the motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. It is a motion which required a great deal of thought, and I think that a number of councillors have approached the General Manager for further information about this. Certainly, what we should be doing is supporting businesses in Broken Hill. And especially when the conditions at the moment are so difficult, we are hopeful that other businesses certainly are going to be able to pick up where they've left off, and that new businesses will be able to start as well. Some of the questions that I asked were about the noise level, and I've been assured that the building is fully soundproofed, and that the doors would be kept shut during operations. Another point there about the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, those hours are to be spent with the staff deployed to mine sites. They will be doing work on mine sites. They will be doing maintenance work there. So I think that the real issue here is the extra hour, starting earlier. And I think that if we are going to be having people employed there, work undertaken there, then we are perhaps going to have to be supportive of this.
Thank you, Councillor. No further speakers against? Okay, Councillor Brown, write a reply.
I think I probably said all that I wanted to say in my opening remarks. I'm finding it hard to hear. I've changed my earphones, so my voice is echoing.
Speak up a little bit, because it's hard for us to hear you at the moment.
I might leave it at that, Madam Mayor. It's just a bit too difficult.
Okay, thank you, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, Councillor Cool, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Mayor Turley. All those against? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Allgate. Declare that motion carried. Can we invite Councillor Adams back in, please? Councillors, it's gone 9 o'clock. We need a motion to extend our meeting. I've got Councillor Adams, just to let you know, Councillor, that DA modification was passed. But councillors, it's 9 o'clock. We need an extension for our meeting as required. Can I have a mover to extend the meeting? Councillor Nolan, seconded by Councillor LeCour. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those in favour extending the meeting, it's Councillor LeCour, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, and Mayor Turley. All those against, Councillor Allgate and Councillor Kennedy against extending the meeting. Thank you, councillors. The motion's carried. We now move to the investment report for March 2020, page 100, report number 50/20. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Mover by Councillor Cool, seconder Councillor Clark. Councillor Cool, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, reserve that.
No, Councillor. So Speakers against the motion? No speakers against the motion? Councillor Clark, you have your hand up. Did you want to ask something?
No.
Okay, thank you. It's just, okay, there's no speakers against. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Record your vote. Declare that Councillor Clark, you voting? Declare that vote carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move to the minutes of the report number 51/20, the minutes of the local traffic committee. Councillor Brown, you're moving that way. Oh, sorry, Councillor McCool, you're moving that way.
No, it's leaving. It's gonna leave.
Oh, he's leaving. Sorry, Councillor. Oh, you're speaking, Councillor.
You're going to put me, no, I have to declare, I've declared an interest in this item.
Oh, sorry, you're leaving, that's right.
Putting me into the waiting room, aren't you?
Yes, we're putting you in the waiting room. Thank you. Councillor Brown is moving the motion. Councillor Clark, Councillor Cool's in the waiting room. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Clark. Have to find your button, Councillor Clark. Thank you. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to the motion?
Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Brown's passing on speaking. Any speakers against? No speakers against. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Councillor Kennedy, Mayor Shirley. Declare that motion carried unanimously. Invite Councillor Branco back into the chamber. So the next item is item Broken Hill City Council report number 52/20. Reports the action list, page 125. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Adams. Seconder, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Adams, do you want to speak to that?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor.
No. Any debate? We'll clear the hands. No debate. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declared that passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We're moving to committee reports, and the first item is minutes of the Flora and Fauna Committee, page 142. Councillor Brown, as the committee member, you want to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Seconder. Seconded by Councillor Adams. Okay, Councillor Brown, you want to speak to that? We'll just unmute you, Councillor Brown. Did you want to speak to the motion?
I just said there's not much to talk about there in those minutes, no.
Yeah, there's not much to say out there. Thank you, Councillor. If there's no debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Allgate, Cool, Councillor Adams, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Page, Councillor Kennedy, and Councillor Clark and Mayor Turley. Thank you, councillors. Questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. It's report number 6/20. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Kennedy. Seconder. Seconded by Councillor Brown. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. I was going to move that the report be received and that access to the council chamber public toilets be available during weekdays during normal work operational hours, so that the users of Senec Link can use those.
So, thank you. I'll just check with Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown, do you want to still second that motion given that amendment included?
I just have a question. understood that the response from the general manager was that those toilets are available.
So my understanding is the Centrelink toilets are available, and Sturt Park, the reason why our toilets are closed, Mr. General Manager?
Madam Mayor, it was a decision taken about a month ago. It's a resourcing issue. I mean, obviously the workload has increased quite significantly on our cleaning staff in terms of the deep cleans they need to have on all of our facilities, plus the other public toilet amenities. So there was a strategic decision taken about a month, 5 weeks ago, when we were looking at shutting things down to shut that facility, obviously because we couldn't keep it maintained to the standard we wanted with the resourcing we had.
So Councillor Brown, with that information, do you want to withdraw your seconder for that motion? Yes, you do. Okay, I'll ask Councillor Allgate. I'm guessing you would like to second Councillor Kennedy's motion. Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam. Look, at this hard time, I think we need to do all we can, particularly for the people that have lost their jobs. These are people that haven't been regular users of Centrelink. These are people that at one stage were lined up 10, 15, 20, 30 people. To expect them to go over to the Sturt Park with toilets, which is about a block away, or even use the toilets within the Centrelink when the amount of people that were there and weren't allowed to use it is unacceptable. To put more embarrassment on people that have lost their jobs or make it any harder is not something that I would like to do as a councillor. And anything that can make it a little bit easier as a councillor, I'd like to see happen. Those toilets, very small toilets, don't hold many people. I don't think cleaning would be a major issue for those toilets. I'm not asking for them to be opened all the time, only in the normal operation hours of the Centrelink. So that's all I can say on the matter. I'd hope that councillors do support it, because I do think it's important for a council to support those that have been most affected by the COVID-19 virus, and that is the people that have lost their jobs, and some of those people have never been out of work until this point. They certainly do not need the extra humiliation of not being able to use a toilet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. You're speaking against the
I am just questioning why the people were not allowed to use the toilet at Centrelink.
They are. They are allowed to use the toilets at Centrelink.
Oh, I thought Councillor Kennedy said they weren't. They were not allowed to use the toilet at Centrelink.
Councillor Kennedy?
No, I said that they were only allowed to have so many people in there at a time. So people were outside. They can't go inside to use the toilets at Centrelink because of distancing rules. So if you have a look when you drive past there, you'll see people are out front. Not so much now because there's less people that are using it at one time. But they are bound by social distancing rules, as is everyone else, and they're only allowed 3 or 4 people or 2 people in, or whatever amount of people it is in there at a time. So people are out the front. They are not allowed to go in there to use the toilet unless they are 1 or 2 or whatever the amount of people are they are allowed to have in.
Thank you. So is it still a problem with the numbers of people?
Sorry, Councillor, just to clarify, I actually contacted the federal member's office, and he has advised me that people would be able to go in and use the toilet at Centrelink. So, so what was your question, Councillor?
Is there still a problem regarding the number of people at Centrelink? Is it still a problem? Or was this a problem a month ago, and is it still a problem?
They still have to have social distancing, but the federal member has said that people will be able to access the toilets at Centrelink.
No, I was talking about numbers, actually, but that's okay. All right.
I don't have the numbers. Okay, so Councillor Kennedy has spoken to his motion. Nobody's spoken against. Councillor Clark was seeking clarification. There's no further debate. Councillor Kennedy, write a reply.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Allgate, Councillor LaCour, Councillor Page and Councillor Tom. All those against? Councillor Brown, Councillor Adams, Councillor Clark, Mayor Shirley. Oh, sorry, I think we have a dead tie. I'll just write this down. Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor LaCour, Councillor Norland, Councillor Page and Councillor Tom, Councillor Brown, Councillor Adams, Councillor Clark and Mayor Turley. Councillor Kenny's motion's been passed. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move to confidential matters. We need to turn off the recording. Oh, wait on. No. We'll have a motion to go into confidential matters. So moved by Councillor Adams. Seconder, Councillor Clark. Sorry, you seconding that, Councillor Kennedy?
Questions for the next meeting?
Oh, sorry. I haven't got that on my sheet in front of me. Questions for the next meeting, councillors? My apologies. Well, I'll hold that other motion. We've covered all the questions. Is there anything else, Councillor Kennedy?
Yeah, look, question that I have, and it wasn't on the agenda, so it might be, I have asked the General Manager, but I've since got more information today, was about dog attacks out at Railway Town. I'll send through extra information to the General Manager so he doesn't need to answer it this here, but I'll send it through to the General Manager via email.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no further questions, Councillor Clark?
No, I think I was just going to second something.
Okay, that's okay. Councillor Nolan, do you have
into confidential? That's what it was.
Do you have a question for the next meeting?
No.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Brown, do you have a question for the next meeting?
No, I also was either moving or seconding.
Okay, right, we're going into confidential now. I have Councillor Adams has moved to move into confidential and seconded by Councillor Brown. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Yeah.
So all those in favour is a unanimous vote, including Mayor Turley. Thank you, everyone. We'll stop the recording. Okay. Camera, I'll ask the General Manager to read back the motion.
Yes, can you put that last one up for me? So that's what I need. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Confidential minutes confirmation. Broken Hill City Council report 5420 dated March 31, 2020 be received. Confidential minutes of the ordinary council meeting held 25 March 2020 be confirmed. Item number 2, correspondence re code of conduct. Broken Hill City Council report number 5520 dated April 3, 2020 be received. And 2, the correspondence received from the Office of Government regarding code of conduct matter BHC 2019-0628 be received and noted. And item number 3, in relation to proposed licence of BP O'Neill Park to the Broken Hill Soccer Association, resolved by Council that Broken Hill City Council report 5620 dated April 14, 2020 be received. The Council enter into an interim licence agreement with the Broken Hill Soccer Association Inc. for the use of EP O'Neill Park Reserve 70321 Lot 7304 DP 1176992 Lot 2760 DP 764,895 and Lot 2916 DP 765076. The licence agreement be for the duration of 12 months, that the annual rent be the current Crown Lands minimum rent of $504 per annum, and that the licence agreement be signed and executed by the Mayor and General Manager under the common seal of Council. And the last item relating to correspondence received from Rex requesting financial assistance. Resolved by Council that Broken Hill City Council Report 5720 dated April 24, 2020 be received. That correspondence from Regional Express Holdings Limited dated 23 April 2020 be received. That Rex be informed that Council is willing to defer payment of $48,400 on a no interest basis for a period of 12 months or until the airline is in a position to repay the amount, whichever is the sooner, and that the state government be approached as a matter of urgency with a request to provide financial assistance to Rex to ensure the survival of an airline for Broken Hill and region. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. I'll close the meeting and thank you all for attending.